Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Marson, director of Jonny Mozza's Lessons in Confidence today. I want to talk a little bit about the commodification of art and let's call it media, film, video, image, audio, music, all that kind of stuff. It kind of feels like, in this modern world of, algorithms and all that sort of stuff, it all sort of feels a little bit meaningless. Someone can put loads of time and effort into something that's really, really beautiful, and it just becomes another thing on the feed, You're scrolling through. I wake up now, and have since the YouTube Shorts thing came out. You wake up and you end up after half an hour or so just kind of doing this. And it's loads of stuff that people put a lot of hard graft into, right? Someone has gone out and thought, done a load of research on how to find the best camera and all this kind of stuff, and then they're projecting that information onto you, the viewer, or someone who's put a load of time into writing a skit that's funny, and then they presented it to you to laugh at, or someone has put a load of time into making a film for you to feel emotions at, and that's all it is now. You watch things, and you're meant to feel emotions. That there's an idea of an emotion behind it that you're meant to feel, but you just don't. You don't really feel much of anything. It all becomes so disposable. And I look at my analytics, for instance. This isn't me moaning about the fact I don't get enough views. I suppose it kind of is. But I look at old videos on this channel, and after a few days, the views just completely flatline, right? Because it all just gets forgotten about into the abyss of all the other stuff that comes out, right? Nothing has a staying power anymore. There's so much stuff on the internet. There is so much. There's billions upon billions of videos, and of that, there's probably millions of things that are actually worth watching and entertaining and all this sort of stuff. There's loads of great stuff out there. I mean, Joel Haver, for instance, he's made 25 feature films, right? But at a certain point, it just becomes another one and another one and another one. And then there's another filmmaker, and he does a load of films, and she does a load of films, and it's just more. And then there's, a musician, and they're putting out a load of art, music and stuff. And you go on their YouTube channel, their Spotify, and it's just like, here's a song about this, song about this, song about this. There's another song, another song, and another song, and another song. And it just goes on and on and on, right? And it feels kind of disheartening. It's almost like, why am I bothering with this? Because, it just seems like in this modern sort of world where, algorithms dominate everything, the idea of an algorithm is to present you stuff that you're interested in. And it obviously does a decent enough job of that because, so many of us are on the train or in bed or whatever, just doing this. Just swiping through to the next one and the next one. Watch one video, watch a bit of it. Doesn't matter about the rest of it. I mean, I might just have it on in the background or while I'm doing some cleaning or something like that. Or, I'm watching a quick short while I'm on the bog. There's nothing to it. There's ideas of emotion in there. There's, the thing that you should be feeling, and you recognize that you should be feeling it, but you don't. Very rarely do you get that true sense of, enjoyment. For instance, I've noticed that there's been a bit of a resurgence of appreciation for B-movies from the 50s. And the thing is, B-movies from the 50s were the equivalent of the TikTok feed now. They were total garbage designed just to, get a few ticket sales, made on the cheapest possible budget so that they can make a bit of profit. They were products. But, by comparison today, they almost seem like fun art. And at a certain point, in 50 years' time or whatever, we're going to start seeing the same thing happen with, whatever TikTok thing is going around now, where people will go back and feel nostalgia for them. Go, oh, guys, do you remember this TikTok where the guy threw the ball? Oh, wasn't that amazing? I miss 2020's, entertainment. It's all just garbage now. And, there's two attitudes towards it. There's either the idea that it's all cyclical, i.e., trends come and go. We always think that things are getting worse, but in reality, there's always good stuff. And then there's the linear sort of attitude, which is the one that I've been feeling a little bit more lately. I used to have more of the cyclical attitude, and I want to get back to the cyclical attitude because it's a much more positive attitude where, trends come and go, there's positives and negatives in everything, don't worry so much about it. And then there's a linear view, which is things are getting worse. If you look at those B movies from the 50s that were meant to just be shite products, right? Designed for as cheap as possible to get as many audience members in just to make the money back and then some, right? Now you've got TikToks, and then, you know, from there, we're gonna have whatever comes next. And then from there, we're gonna have whatever comes after that, and everything will make the thing before seem like it was better, you know? But either the quality kind of goes up and down with perception, or it's concrete. It's, this was this quality, this was this quality. I mean, most people would probably say that, you know, I don't know, The Shawshank Redemption is a good movie, right? Most people would probably agree that it's a good movie. It's the highest rated one on IMDb. I like it, it's a good movie. It's not my favorite movie, but I wouldn't say it's a bad movie, right? So I don't know how objective or subjective that attitude is, because if art was totally subjective, then, you know, there would be about a 50% chance that someone would like or dislike any particular thing that's going around. But generally, there's a lot of things that most people agree are kind of shite, and there's a lot of things that people think are kind of good. So I don't know how objective or subjective it is. I mean, obviously art is subjective, but how subjective is it? That's the question that I can't answer. And what I'm wondering is, as the current trends continue, and art and media and things that we watch and consume become more consumable and more of a commodity, how are we going to grapple with the fact that everything starts to lose its meaning? At the moment, we've got this kind of, there's an idea of meaning behind things. I mean, when was the last time, for instance, just to prove my point a bit, that you felt a strong emotion towards a TikTok short video, right? When was the last time that it got you to, you know, truly laugh, not just like, yeah, I get the idea, yeah. Or, you know, when was the last time one made you cry? Or when was the last time one had you at the edge of your seat, you know? I watched The Transporter, the original one, with, well, not the original one because it's a remake of a TV show, but I watched the one with Jason Statham from 2002 the other day, and I really enjoyed it. I'd say it was a good, solid movie. It was the most good, solid movie you could possibly get. It was as good as it could have been, and I liked it, right? And I had a good time watching it, right? And I was watching it, and afterwards I kind of thought, I haven't felt like that in a while, where I've truly enjoyed watching something, you know, in a holistic sense, rather than just kind of, you know, I've watched it, it's done, move on to the next thing. Watched it, done, move on to the next thing. And I've spent my whole adult life making things, trying to get to that, you know, trying to make something that would give that to other people. That sense that I got watching The Transporter, I want to make art commodities that can make other people feel the way that I did watching The Transporter. Or hell, fuck The Transporter, how about my favourite film ever, Before Sunrise, where every time I've watched it, I've ended up in tears because I love that film, right? I made a whole video about it, even how I don't even want to go back to it because I have such strong emotions towards it. I want to make something that will make someone feel like that, but in the modern day of, you know, algorithms and stuff, it kind of just feels like everything is just consumable trite. You know, no one loves a McDonald's and thinks that it's the best food ever, but we'll eat it, you know, because we need a bit of energy so we can get on with our lives, you know. No one's ever had a Costa coffee and thought, wow, that was amazing. No, they drink it, and then they get the bit of energy that comes from drinking a coffee, and then they get on with their day, £5 lighter in their wallet, right? It just kind of feels like, I don't know, I've been a bit cynical about art and stuff lately, and it's made it harder to make these videos because I like to, you know, portray, you know, positive attitudes, and I like to convey happiness and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, I'm not afraid of talking about negative things, but lately I feel like if I've been making videos at the pace that I normally make, it would just all be negative, and I don't want that. I don't want to spread negativity. I want to analyze negativity if there's something to glean from it, right? But I don't know. It kind of just feels like we're just going through the motions. Not necessarily these videos. I mean, in terms of all content, you know, things are just called content now. I even use the word content now. I used to hate the word content. I find myself using it. Oh yeah, we're gonna meet up, we're gonna make a load of content. We're gonna go do this, and we're gonna make a load of content. Oh, we can get some Instagram posts out of this. Oh yeah, we can get a couple videos out of that. It's all just products. And I know that art has always been a, you know, product. I mean, The Simpsons, for instance, fantastic TV show that has, you know, a lot of emotions that can be conveyed in it, and it was still a big product with, you know, loads of merchandising and commercialization towards it, but it was somehow able to keep the soul even despite all of that. So I don't know inherently what's wrong with the current landscape, and if there even is something wrong with the current landscape, and if it's just my, negative interpretation of it at this current moment. I don't know what the situation is, and I'd like to figure it out. Because, look, I do a lot of, content creation. I make these videos, I make music, I make films, documentaries and stuff. And I don't know, I could be making more money doing corporate stuff and, doing commercial work and taking gigs and stuff. And since I've started this YouTube channel, I haven't really done much of that. And I'm wondering, like, what's the point of this necessarily? Because I've talked about so many different things. All the videos are there about basically every topic you could possibly imagine, right? So all the stuff is there for people to feel emotions towards and to consume. And yet the videos keep flatlining. And I'm not saying it in like I don't get views sort of way. I mean, obviously I am a bit, but what worries me is the fact that it all just gets forgotten to time. What's the point of making all of this stuff if, once I die, it's all just going to get forgotten to the sands of time? What's the point of putting out video after video after video if each video just nullifies the existence of the last one? What's the point of it when we should be building a catalogue? That's kind of the idea. But I guess the catalogue is so big now in terms of not just my videos, but all the videos on YouTube and every social media site that there is, and every film that gets released and every song that gets uploaded to Spotify. The catalogue is so big that even though the storage is there physically to hold all of this material, the collective brain power of all 8 billion people isn't there to consume everything that there is, in a retrospective sense as well. I mean, of all the films that came out in the 70s, we only remember the best ones. And, it's going to apply to all the YouTube videos that came out in the last decade. We're only going to remember all the good ones. I went back and watched a few iDubbbz's, what are they called? Kickstarter craps. Right? They're, again, not the best stuff that came out of that decade, but they're decent, But I went on the comments for them and I sorted by newest. And the newest comment would be like 6 months ago. And the one before that would be like a year ago. And the one before that would be 2 years ago. And it's kind of, those videos were very popular. They all have millions of views. But so they obviously resonated with people at the time, but then they all just got forgotten, right? And obviously I'm not saying that they're, the pinnacle of, film or media or anything like that. They're just kind of consumable shite videos to watch while you're cleaning your house or whatever, It's just like, it's just a voice to have on in the background, and that's all I am as well. I'm just a voice to have on in the background, and I'm fine with that. But what annoys me, or not necessarily annoys me, but what I find a bit saddening and disheartening is that the old stuff gets no sort of reminiscence. No one really goes back to it. Whenever I get a comment on an old video that doesn't really do particularly good numbers anymore, I always get a little bit happy. It's like someone has found that, and it's like the work that I did all that time ago still has meaning now. That's what I kind of enjoy. That's what I like about the idea of making more stuff, because the more stuff that I make, the catalogue has grown. That's what I enjoy about it. But maybe if the catalogue is too big, people can't go through and watch it all and find some enjoyment out of all of it. Maybe it's too intimidating to look at all 400 or 500 videos or whatever it is I've done. Maybe that's the issue. Say if I'd only uploaded 30 of these videos, right, and then disappeared, maybe those 30 videos would get more of a look in, and I said I wanted to make people feel emotions towards stuff that I've been doing. Maybe I would have been more successful at that if I'd made far less videos, and those videos would have reached a broader, collective for a longer period of time, compared to commodifying them in the sense that, this whole quantity over quality thing, where it's just trying to make as much stuff as possible, If I hadn't done that and I'd just gone for the sheer, just try and get 30 of the best videos done and then just leave it, maybe that would have done better in the long run. Because I know that they're not like fantastic videos or anything, right? But I do know that they do resonate with people, and I get, emails and Instagram messages and stuff from people saying like, oh yeah, your stuff means a lot to me. And I'm glad about that. And I'm finding it a little bit hard now to carry on, because it's kind of like, not necessarily that I've run out of ideas, but I'm just a little bit disheartened in the sense that all art seems so commodified now. I look at my YouTube feed now and I don't find any interest in any of it. I might click on one just like, oh, it's just a thing to have on, you know. I don't get entertained by entertainment anymore. I just consume it. And that seems like what we all do. You know, I see people on the train and they're just flicking through TikToks or whatevers, you know. And I understand that that's how people consume media now. I don't have a problem with the inherent idea of, you know, a TikTok video if it were good. What I dislike is the consumability of it, how it's all just become McDonald's, even the good stuff. It's all just, you know, consumable. You know, I listen to an album now and I don't feel anything quite the way I used to. I watch a film and I don't feel anything quite the way that I used to. And I'd like to feel more again. And maybe it's a problem that there is just too much stuff out there. There's so much garbage, but there's also so much good stuff. There's so much good stuff that it nullifies each other out, it cancels each other out. Because since there is so much good stuff, how are we supposed to get through it all? Unless we reduce its worth. Because I'm not saying that these videos have a vast amount of worth, but you know, there's loads of stuff out there that is really worthwhile that never gets a look in. You know, it might get a look in when it's released and then gets forgotten about. You know, I mentioned Joel Haver earlier. My favourite film of his is the Hero's Journey one that he did. And that one I really, really like. And he's done loads of films since then, right? So does the Hero's Journey really still get a look in? I don't know. I hope so. And it's kind of like the Transporter. When was the last time you heard someone talk about the Transporter? It's a good film, you know? But, you know, since they stopped making Transporter movies, no one talks about the Transporter anymore. You know, or take a bad film, for instance, like the Michael Bay Transformers movies. They got forgotten about, right? After they stopped making those. You know, but then take something like, I don't know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're still making those, and I don't really hear people talking about it much anymore. I don't really hear people talking about films in that sort of way, where, you know, you go back to an old film and you really, really enjoy it. There's the few staples, you know, like Jurassic Park and Jaws and stuff that always seem to exist forever. And I want more stuff to be like that. Where's the Jaws of the modern day? Where's the Jurassic Park of the modern day? Something that just, you know, stays in the public conscience for a long time. Because there used to be I don't know, it just seems like there used to be more meaning towards stuff, even if the art in itself didn't have a vast amount of emotional resonance. It still was able to glean more emotional resonance from its audience compared to now, where something might have, you know, much more emotional resonance, much more, you know, visceral quality, and it's a much more earnest representation of the artist's soul that they're expressing out there to the world. But it becomes less important or less worthwhile because there's so many people doing it. There's so much stuff out there. And the democratization of film has meant that it's all a little bit more meaningless. But at the same time, I do think that the democratization of film was a good thing. It was good to, you know, take power away from, you know, the vast studios with their exploitative practices and put it in the hands of the little guy. But at the same time, and you know, it's certainly now things are more artistic in the sense that there's less, you know, community meetings and stuff from all the board members and stuff going, oh yeah, you need to make Optimus Prime's face a little bit more like human looking or whatever, you know, because people aren't going to recognize it or something like that. Or, you know, in John Wick when they had to do that CGI dog shit for $2 million. You know, there's less of that now, but there's also more, I don't know, I think it's the algorithm's fault. I'm not saying it's the fault of small individual creators. I'm saying that it's the fault of the algorithm in and of itself that's causing so much commodification of art. You know, loads of people are, you know, bearing themselves out there. I saw a video today from some guy. It was something like, I don't need to forgive my mother for what she did. And it was basically him responding to some comment that someone made saying that, you know, in the Bible, you're meant to forgive people and you should be forgiving your mother for whatever he did to you. I didn't even watch the whole thing. I got bored of it a minute in because there's just so much crap out there that someone, you know, earnestly bearing their soul out about something that's really important and interesting just kind of gets lost and forgotten, you know. So I never even figured out why he didn't want to forgive his mother. You know, and there's probably something interesting there in the idea of forgiveness. Should you forgive people who have done terrible things? And I'm sure there's loads to explore in that. So I made a song about that, but you know, what we do now is we make songs about, I just make songs about all the things that mean something to me. I make songs about all the important questions that there are. And eventually, you know, I'll have done songs about all the important questions. I'm sure I'll find more stuff and more stuff and more stuff, but it just becomes the repetitive nature. That's what you do. You make a bit of art about something that means something to you, right? And that's what all artists do, and that's what they've always done. But now there's so many more of them doing it at such a faster pace that it all becomes a little bit more meaningless and a little bit more pointless at the end of the day. And it's not, you know, I'm not saying it like, oh, there's so much crap out there, you know, nothing means anything anymore. Like, there is still good stuff out there. There's still good films, good music and all that, but I don't get as much out of it anymore compared to when I used to. And I don't know if that's a me problem or if it's a systematic problem. And that's why I'm making this video, because I'd like your opinions on that. Do you think that everything that I'm talking about here is an internal brain thing from me, where it's my problem that I'm not getting enough out of this modern day art, or like just art in general, because it's a retrospective thing as well. I get less out of the old stuff as well. Or do you think it's a systematic thing where, you know, because of algorithms and all this sort of stuff, you know, commodifying art, you know, because now, you know, you see an endless feed of like masterpieces come down your fucking feed, whether you're into them or not, you know, stuff that people have put loads of hard graft into and loads of effort into. Which one is it? Is it the personal or is it the systematic? Because I don't know. And I've been struggling to make these videos because I can't figure out an answer to that question. And it's just, I don't know, it's all felt a little bit pointless making these videos. So I've been a bit more nihilistic about it, I guess, or a bit more cynical about it. So, and I'd like to get out of that headspace, because it's not a healthy headspace to be in, I know. And I want to, you know, do more videos. I like making these videos at the end of the day. I like making things that mean something to people. But I don't know, I do feel like it's kind of past its heyday a little bit. Maybe it'll get another big, you know, resurgence. I'm not talking in views, I'm talking about in artistic merit or in, you know, personal fulfillment. That's what I'm talking about here. It's not a case of numbers, although, yeah, the numbers are down. So maybe that led into me thinking about it from a personal point of view. So maybe the numbers are all inherently a part of it, and maybe I'm just in denial about, you know, my reasonings and my rationales behind all of this. But I don't know, it is something that's been on my mind, and I've just been trying to figure it out. So that's kind of the video from me. That's my little piece. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below, and yeah, take care everybody. Bye bye.